an implementation of level data can be as complex as you want, loading content from the disk, from the network, from random noise of the universe. I am going to create something called TestLevel, which inherits from our level data interface. That's the one I want. And I'm just going to do all the work in the constructor. Let's start with implementing the method that we just defined as our interface, the getSprite. And what it should return by default is, of course, the null sprite. So what we know is if it does nothing else, we will at least render some nice purple four angles, I was going to say. Nice purple squares, rectangles, 4 angles. Very good. So, constructor. Let's see if we can actually generate that as well. Create, hey, that's childish, okay. So, public, test level. Needs no arguments, because this is the level. What do I want? So what we need is basically a hash map, or something like a hash map. We want to translate, and I go back to the course website. We want to translate the numbers in our sprite map to sprite names. Sorry, numbers in our tile map for sprite names in our resource system. We could do that with a hash map. That would be a simple choice, but I understand that sparse array was made for this specific purpose. So it's more efficient than a hash map when you are mapping integers to objects. So in our case, the objects would be strings, but it's still an object. So I'm going to go with sparse array, also because it gives me an opportunity to sample the collections of Java. So this, my mouse pointer, thank you. The sparse array needs to hold tile IDs to sprite mappings. So that's a pretty good name. Tile ID to sprite name. Very, self-explanatory. New sparse array. Do I need to use the compatibility one? I'm not sure. So I'm going to not for now. We'll see if it complains depending on our build target, but it doesn't seem to. All we need to do is then do a ton of these statements. So tile 0, the number 0, should probably represent our background. And I'm not sure if we have a background, so let me go check my drawables. Ground is not it. Blue, 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 blue. No, okay, so let's go open the folder and see what would be reasonable. Drawable, whoop. That's the resources, drawable no DPI. I am thinking we might not want to load a bitmap for the background. What we can do is just have a background color instead. So we can leave 0 for background, and we can treat that specially when it comes to loading the thing. Let me just do a bunch of these. We need the player, we need at least a ground block. We probably need corners for the ground blocks. We don't have to do all of them right now though. So let's see, we can call that player. I don't think I have a player name. Let me go back here. That would be, well, blue left is what I'm going to use for my player. And that's not supremely clear. So I might want to define that. Probably in the level data, to be honest, but let's make a public static final so that our loading code can use the player name instead of this little file name, which will just confuse us. So player is blue left 1. And then we can do it here. Because this is, sorry, not. The player, of course, is something we're going to have to treat especial, because we need to wrap that with a specific instance of our entity classes so that we can hook it up with our controllers and just, make sure the game knows what the player is. Number 2 could be a ground tile. So let me get the name for that. I want a straight ground with some grass on it. Well, actually, that's perfect. Plain ground. Because then I can wrap it with... Nope. I want ground right and ground left in that order. The only difference between these is, of course, the rounded corners, which I feel is a neat touch. 3 and 4. So ground left, and that was ground right. Once we have populated the tiles sprite, we also want to populate our tiles array, of course. So we want to do a new int array. Whoop, bloop. And is that like so? And then we can basically fill it in. Let's see, this is a... We need to create them like this, I think. So this would be the first row of our game world. If I just wanted to make it... What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 7 meters. It's unimportant, obviously, completely arbitrary, but let's create 7 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meters. And these need to be... There we go. X, Y. That should make sense. And then we can just put some ground tiles here in the middle. Let's see. We use tile 2. And then I want a cap on that, so that would be ground right here, number 4, and ground left over here. And we might want to put in the player, but not really, because it's making me nervous. That's enough for a very basic layout. I'm actually going to change this around. I probably want the more sky ground lower to the bottom of the world. So yeah, the only thing left now is basically translating those sprite names. Let's do final string, file name. We make a lookup using the argument we were passed in. If it isn't null, we can return the file name, and otherwise we return null sprite. That's all we need. Hopefully, anyway. So now we need code to actually load and parse this stuff and make sure that I wrote these correctly. Let me see if this even compiles. Which, of course, it will, because I'm not using this code. So let me quickly go to the game class, just a member of that type, which is not where it's going to live, but just to make sure it gets brought in, I want a test level. I realize we have missed something. We have not calculated the width and height yet. New test level. There we go. Go to test level. Once we have populated the arrays, we have to call calculate width and height. Update width and height. Update level dimensions. There we go. This is the most important part of the entire constructor, so let's not forget that. Let me zoom out a bit. It's building. But of course, I started that build before I was done, so abort. And rebuild. Fine, be that way. Tile ID to sprite name. I want that to be renamed. Proper capitals. Refactor, rename. Tile ID to sprite name. Well, it hasn't spit out any compiler errors just yet, so I'm just going to pause the recording and then come back to you and start building the level manager who's responsible for, you know, getting these sprite names, creating the entities, loading that stuff for us. And that could be package private, so I might as well do that. That is good. These are, yeah, should probably be public because we're going to need that. No, package private. See, I'm still learning. Package private. It will be accessible for a level manager. Turn on the screen. Is that our app? Yes, it is. At least I thought it was. Okay, whatever. I'll see you in the next video.